Hello guys, and welcome to the Mega Post. My name is Tony, and this is my co-host Daniel.
I got a question for you. What makes a good game? What makes a game bad? These are constantly asked questions that have no set definition. Today we're going to look at a game that does its best to be something while at the same time it's shackled to the decisions both in and out of said game. That game is Soul Hackers 2, the sequel of a 25-year-old game that most people haven't played before. A modern take of the cyberpunk genre that challenges the morals of humans that are entrenched in a summoner lifestyle.
The game starts and introduces the main character Ringo and Fig, being just made by the informational guardian of humanity, Ion. Now what is Ion? It's not really that important as they make it out to be, but essentially they gather information about the outside world to monitor humanity to make sure that we don't blow ourselves up. They tell us that two people are connected to some underground plot relying on the summoning and control of demons. Their deaths must be prevented, that being the super scientist Ichiro Honda and a man named Arrow. Since you will be fighting demons, Ion equips you with a comp and a sword for self-defense. The targets are already dead by the time you get to them, but Arrow's quite fresh, so Ringo operates a soul hack to tether his life to yours. Do this with the rest of your team members since they'll all die due to the actions of Phantom Society.
The gameplay is more lackluster than any of the other titles due to a lack of complexity in the options given to you, such as there is no Hama/Mudo skills. Most will say that they are relieved that they're not there, but we disagree. It's like, what's the point of refining the skills in the previous games to then just remove them for a generic skill called Ruin?
I am however happy that skills like Poisma and Makajama deal damage now, and it isn't a straight up wash because bosses are immune. Demon Negotiation is now even more annoying because it's entirely locked behind RNG and has less decision making than before. At least I get to choose what demon to talk to, but now I have to pray that Metatron has a game at the local mixer. But instead of the press turn system like Nocturne or SMT4, we got the stack system, which is kind of fine. It's very reminiscent of the sessions from Tokyo Mirage Sessions. The real problem is how the combat is too forgiving. There's no punishment for hitting the wrong affinity, as it doesn't disrupt the stack. Immunities like Reflect also doesn't affect the stack and or the turn, so I have no reason to take it seriously.
I can't tell you how many times in the game where I just said screw it and would use a move that I knew wouldn't work on an enemy solely because it would bounce back and heal me, or I would null it. That's how I got most of the way through the final boss fight, just using Saizo's, shit, what's the wind move called?
My Sundyne, because that's what I did. Now, the purpose of the stack system is to reach the Sabbath. The more numbers you have, like the higher it goes up, the higher the count, the more damage it does. Because these bosses are really tanky. So it doesn't really matter how finely tuned your team is. It's really dependent on how many times you can successfully hit the stack.
The upgrade system, on the other hand, is just drab and repetitive. To take an RNG chance of being rewarded chips to upgrade your comps. And the demons serve no purpose narratively. As long as Ringo is leveled up, you can equip any demon to anyone.
Don't even try to fool me with the idea of variety in terms of builds. Like, you can ham-fist a playstyle and say that I can grind for a couple hours to change it, but why would I? I'm not having fun grinding for this, so why do I have to upgrade the comp for a damage for demon skills?
Now, on the other hand, the characters are one of the better things about this game. That's because their motivations are down to earth and reasonable for the most part. It only starts to fall off near the final act. And I believe out of the three party members, the only one that stays static is Arrow. That's not because his background is bland, but because he has nothing to learn. He's in the right both societally and personally. Melody, on the other hand, is she's cold and distraught to the thought that the man she was sleeping with was a terrorist working with people to summon and spread mayhem with powerful demons. Saizo, being the neutral party member, represents someone who doesn't want to work for either faction and takes odd jobs for them. I like Saizo, he's the coolest one of the bunch.
Well, he's the only one who actually learns and develops. He thinks that he has to, be in a box, he has to either go, left or right. He either has to, do what he wants to do, or he has to, forsake everything. Because he likes summoning demons, he likes being a summoner, he likes being able to help other people. But because the two big fishes in the sea, or the pond over here, they just kind of swim around and they take up all the jobs. They take up, all the authority when it comes to the summoning.
Plus, Saizo's the only character to canonically get laid. That's what happens when you finish his soul matrix. to 100%.
What? No,
Well, not
Melody
to
gets
100%,
laid.
but when you finish the
Melody was sleeping with Iron Mask like the entire time. That was her entire character. Is that she?
but you
fucking-
don't see that. You don't see that in the game.
Yes, you
don't see that
do.
in the
She was
game.
in bed. I did not see any clothes on her. It was just her shoulders, bare shoulders. So I'm assuming.
They could have just been laying together.
Sure. All right. Whatever. Alright, so the villains, the main contributors to the fall of humanity, go from actually compelling to just downright laughable. Iron Mask, the main baddie behind the events, just scoffs at attempts to be reasoned with. He is gaining power through the Covenants to uphold his ideals. You have to work backwards to figure out his identity since you have no idea who he is, and neither does Melody. But then you have to stop investigating his past and focus on attention on his Zoma, or the equivalent to a WMD in the Summoner world. Once you do this and learn more on how to play your cards right with the Covenants, you unmask him by a complete mistake. And it turns out that Iron Mask is Raven, one of Arrow's like mentors and like people he looks up to. It's actually kind of nice seeing a character who's just like, to be honest, the man is just tired of the constant fighting and war, of attrition. So he plans a scheme to reset the world so there is no fighting. But due to the blindness of a man stricken with guilt, he forsakes the ideals of the group he was originally fighting for. Now get this, the other character from Ion, Fig, decides that she will not learn a valuable lesson from the events of the story, and proceeds to pick up what Raven was working towards, and my god, it's the most anticlimactic thing ever. I don't want any more sad kids, so I'm going to take everyone's free will. Like, come on now. Maybe now, hear me out. Maybe most of the depressed people and stuff that's going on that's really fucked up in the world is probably due to the summoners and the comp, so why not just take that away and not, like, their free will? That's, like, such a leaps and bounds.
The nameless city in this game is such shit compared to any other setting, including its predecessor, Amami City. The city, which is apparently the pinnacle of current humanity, is hollow, in which people are just non-existent. The game is the safest in terms of what they do with the tools they have brought to make the game as presentable as a stand-in for a AAA product. The main factions are the most circle jerk of all fiction. It sets up the good versus evil that it originally was, but kind of slows down and says that both sides of the conflict are bad. It's an absolute facade of deep storytelling that doesn't have the nuance to have characters have real conflict.
It's fucking stupid, because Yatagarasu, right? The main dude's trying to stop, like demon terrorists from, like, destroying the planet. Is basically, you have to make up of, like, a conflict within, like, an actual person. It's not the organization itself, it's just like, Raven, and, like, maybe a handful of people that are desperate enough to, like, have the fighting stop for good. Alright? And then you got the Phantom Society's rep, and that's being Melody. And there's this one point in the game, right, where she, like, points out to Arrow, well, the good guys trains children to be soldiers. That isn't a strong counter when your side is currently killing in the name of dooming the planet. Like, can you imagine just having, like, just starting a hostile takeover of the planet, and then you just decide to start, like, blaming them? They're not forcing the kids to fight. It's an entirely up to them choice. They're picking out the people who have the potential to become summoners, and then they ask, you can either help us fight to stop the evil organization Phantom Society, or you can just go on about your life. It's entirely up to them.
Alright, these people made Tokyo Mirage Sessions, right?
Yes.
Same developer?
Yeah, same director. Same director.
Same director. Compare this to the previous game, Tokyo Mirage Sessions, where, like, you go, the streets are packed full of people, you can hear the hustle and bustle. You go to the you go to the TV theater, you can hear people working, you can see them. It gives away a presence of people there. With Soul Hackers 2, you run down the street and you'll see maybe, like, a couple people standing, doing nothing.
You hear from, like, the bar and, like, other interactions with Saizo that there's these freelancers.
Yeah, but you never get to see them. It's only Phantom Society summoners and that one Yatagarasu guy you fought. You never fight like Joe and his Jack Frost. No. Always the big two.
Now, speaking about other summoners, Wangetsu Kuzunoha. Now, I don't know if many of you guys probably don't know too much, and if you do, you know what Kuzunoha means. It's like the biggest name within the franchise of Devil Summoner. God damn, they really pull a fast one on you. You really think there's gonna be something interesting going on with somebody with a Kuzunoha. No, he's just some scientist who was able to pull off a trick with the Covenant, allowing Arrow to be a secret Covenant bearer. That's it. He is fucking put down in the street, underground, in a tunnel, and you don't get to see the fighting. You don't get to see what he's capable of. Someone carrying the name of the great Kuzunoha family, and he doesn't really do much.
It really is a shame. Like, they could have done so much more with them. I would have taken like a throwaway, like there's a character in the game called Doppelganger, and it takes the appearance of Ringo. They could have done something like that, like a doppelganger that takes the appearance of Rhino. Even if it's like a gimmick fight, that would have been more acceptable.
You know, like the second tunnel we went through just to like find out that Mangetsu got killed. Now, how about like maybe not the tunnel, but an entirely separate area that he's using as like a safe haven for his experiments on, like, because he was experimenting, he was like figuring out stuff. You know, there's a lab that he works at, and it's not there. I doubt that little tiny lab thing where they find like his homeless people bunker. I doubt that was his actual lab. They should have been like a Yatagarasu lab somewhere in the city that's run down, and then that would have been just another like way for a dungeon to be good, and not like a straight hallway.
Yeah, all the dungeons in this game are exactly the same.
The thing about these fucking so-called dungeons is that they're all hallways that lead to other hallways that is more disappointing than the last. Why doesn't Yatagarasu be more hands-on to the fact that like the Phantom Society is about to like end the world? What were they doing? They didn't do one checkup call. They didn't send any other like employees or members or reputable guys to come in and check on everything.
At the end of the game, the enforcers and insurance of both factions are just kind of there. The elites of the summoning world are underutilized like most of the time, and they don't express their roles in the story very well. Like Azel, he shows up and is like, "Oh, I'm one of the head honchos of the Phantom Society. I just saw you guys were here causing chaos, so I might just thought I'd stroll on by."
Yeah, no, that's a huge deal. Right. No, that's a huge deal. Like do they already know about it? Because as a player, can you imagine some fucking 8-foot tall demon saying, "Yeah, I'm behind a lot of the stuff that's going on. I'm supporting what's going on." Like, and then you just gloss it over. I understand that fucking Fig was about to destroy everything and she's working on it, but like that's still like huge. Can you imagine going to McDonald's and like, "Hey, I need a refund for this," and there's hold on, let me get my manager, and it's just some fucking like, it's just Metatron or like or like Aliok.
"I am sorry, human. You do not have the receipt. I cannot honor this coupon, for it is against my holy contract."
And the other guy, what was his name? Hozumi? I don't even remember his name. But he says, "I'm the cleanup. I'm the top brass." And then he was like, I was over-leveled at this point, but I just didn't care anymore. I leveled up to the max because I was in the last like part of the dungeon. And like, it's so boring. They really know how to make these summoner battles like, nope, they don't feel like anything.
Okay, speaking of how you said you leveled up and everything, I bought the leveling up DLC near the end of my playthrough. I bought the leveling up DLC, the money DLC, because I just couldn't be bothered. And even after I turned off the money DLC, I still was just rolling in it from random encounters.
Speaking of DLC, the Lost Numbers, oh my god, that could have been anything. And instead it's just reskins of all demons that you've already fought or are already in the game. And they're just tankier. And then you gotta like listen to this lost girl talk about how she's trying to find her dad. And you're like, "Who's your dad?" And he's like, "Oh, the scientist who worked with Mangetsu Kuzunoha." And I'm like, "Okay, that's cool." And you don't learn anything. It is that he was just working on some side project to like create a like Zoma, but instead of like something that's like attached to a summoner, it has its own free will. And like, that's interesting. What can we do about it? Nothing. You fight like Nana, Alright. Yeah, her name's Nana, which I'm pretty sure is just 7. So her name's a number, and she's a lost number, so I guess that's a thing, but whatever. Like, there's no interesting demons, there's no interesting bosses. You have to, like, go and do fetch quests inside the last dungeon, which is the only interesting thing, because you've been basically just revisiting places you've already been to.
I didn't buy that DLC.
I'm happy for you. I wish I didn't. It's so expensive. For practically, you get nothing out of it. There's no skills that you get out of it, like how in SMT5. You know how in SMT5, when you fight Demi-Fiend and you beat him, you get to use Demi-Fiend's skills, so it's at least cool. You don't get to do anything with the lost numbers. Or maybe there is. Maybe there was an extra 5th or 6th part with the DLC that I didn't know about.
You want to talk about uselessness? You didn't complete everyone's Soul Matrix to level 4 to find out there's a 5th Soul Matrix and that there's no guide on that because nobody wasted their time to get all the way to the Soul Matrix.
No one fucking paid it. No one, I doubt like anybody actually cared enough to actually do anything for the Soul Matrix. I have never seen a more laborious task than to play the Soul Matrix.
Doing the Soul Matrix made me want to play an even worse game like Strange Journey or Apocalypse.
Once again, it's a running gag in our videos where we trash on a game that's not even terrible. You guys might be wondering, why did this happen? The game was released too soon. That's the main contributing factor, or maybe the only contributing factor. I have absolutely no idea what the development cycle for this game was, because we have no idea. Soul Hackers 2 was announced February 2022, and it came out 6 months later in August. Now, they either gimped out the development time, like they purposely like cut it in half, because it was either taking too long, either by the directors and or some other thing we don't know about. You know, they probably were making this during COVID, so they probably were already on a big time restraint. Or they just simply don't, or maybe it was fine, maybe it was perfect, it was like the perfect cycle that we don't know about, and they just didn't manage their resources well enough. The game might have sold more if they just gave it advertisement slots. Like, I've seen more Persona, like, remaster, like, events going on than Soul Hackers 2. I think they really want Soul Hackers 2 to, like, not be good. I don't think they want to waste any money on spin-offs, and they only want to focus on either SMT or Persona. I don't know, I'll give Soul Hackers 2, like, it's not the worst thing I've done with my life.
I enjoyed it.
Like, there's enjoyable things of it, and I can't, like, the characters and the main flow of the story is alright, but there's hiccups, like, here and there. Like, the villains, for the most part, like, the villains that should count, is Iron Mask and, like, Raven. Those are really good. When they were talking about that, and the plot was moving along at a nice pace, it was actually pretty good. And then we had to stop and go to the Soul Matrix, because I had to, like, level them up, because I need to, like, get these guys stronger, so I can get Melody to, like, Soul Matrix 3 so I can run.
You named Iron Mask and Raven like they aren't the same person.
When Raven's Iron Mask, his entire tone is different. His ideals are the same, but the tone and the way he speaks, Raven's just depressed. Like, he's a lot more sadder, and you can feel it, and it was nice. The betrayal, where, like, they got, like, the Covenants, like, fizzled out, and the only people who have, like, the Covenants is Iron Mask, Fig, and then obviously Arrow, because he has the real purple one. And then that moment where Arrow sees at Raven, because he's checking on the orphanage to see how everybody's doing, and then he sees Raven as another Covenant bearer, and Raven sees the likewise, and they knew that the game was up. It's the final stretch. That's where they're at.
Yeah, I got some closing remarks here. I only really enjoyed the second form of Fig as a boss fight. Every other boss fight in the game was kind of meh. I do like the reference to Digital Devil Story. And that little quest line with Pazuzu and whatnot, that was fun. I don't know, I give the game a 7 out of 10. But comparatively, like, the world was still going to end in both of them, but, like, I feel like Tokyo Mirage put more into it. Like, at least they had the idol thing going for them. And the music.
I like the music for Soul Hackers 2. It's good, it's just not memorable. I don't blame the music composers, because they're the same ones who did all the Nier music, and if anyone has played Nier, they already know that the music is probably some of the best in the game. I don't think they played it up as much as they could have. Like, they play a scene, and they weren't, like, using the music to integrate into the scene to enhance it. They just put the music in the background for the sake that it's music and it needs to be in the background.
You know, like in Persona 4, when they're announcing somebody, like, oh no, we only have so many days. Someone's been abducted by the shadows, and the whole time the music's going. That's what Soul Hackers was missing. It was missing a